4 men in greasy coveralls locked the doors at the Larkspur, told us to put our phones on the table, and pressed a gun into Celia Vaughn's back. And while the whole room froze, I finished chewing my burger, because my dad taught me to never move faster than my mind. Breathe once, see everything, then act, you know what I mean. That kind of steady that looks cold but is really survival. The tall one with the scar said transfer 60 million now, or people start dying. The violinist's bow hung in the air. The candles trembled, and I said in the same voice I used to order hot chocolate, "You've got about 4 minutes and 30 seconds before the first blue lights hit the windows." The silent alarm tripped when you forced the latch. The floor manager tapped his watch 3 times. That's a panic code my dad used to bring home manuals. Scar laughed, pointed a gun at me like he was grading a paper. He planned to fail, and I looked at Celia for one beat, looked up at the chandelier, then the red fire extinguisher by the kitchen, then back at her, and she got it, the way people who've lived in boardrooms can read a breath like a paragraph. She said she needed her biometric reader. Scar leaned, and that's when I kicked the table leg plate up and splash into his eyes, shot in the ceiling. Glass and dust raining chair into the chandelier, so the whole thing shattered into a glitter storm. Extinguisher blast into a gunman's face, a wrench swinging at my head, and my father's voice in my body. Block parry counter. Technique, not bravado. Space, not glory. Keep people alive because panic is the real killer. Sirens started whispering against the windows. Right on schedule. The kitchen door opened. 3 plainclothes with military posture stepped out like punctuation marks, and Scar finally asked, "Who the hell are you?" Which in a different life might have made me laugh, because yeah, that happened. The kid with the backpack running the clock, while the rich and armed tried to figure out what page they're on. I said, "I'm Malik Turner, son of Colonel David Turner. He taught me to keep time, and the cops took the 4 while the carpet soaked up all the adrenaline we spilled." And when I picked up my bag, Celia caught a glimpse of a folder labeled Winter Harvest and a photo with a logo she'd seen too many times to pretend she didn't Apex Forge systems. And I told her we should talk after the paperwork, because breath is easier when no one's aiming at you. At the precinct, a detective told Celia she was lucky I'd been there. He kept looking at me like he was trying to solve for X without the formula. And I said little because grief makes words heavy, and my father had been dead 90 days, official. Heart attack, unofficial message to anyone who follows money through the wrong corridors. And if I let myself feel that while the fluorescent lights hummed, I would have come apart. The next afternoon, I picked a coffee shop that smells like cinnamon and old books. I ordered hot chocolate, because warm hands teach your nervous system to trust you. And when Celia sat down in the kind of disguise that only fools people online, I didn't posture. I told her about fishing with my dad on Sundays, patience as a weapon. Let them think they're in control, then slid a thin folder her way. 29 identities my father built to follow funds through 8 islands, 62 hours of recordings. A private autopsy that found digitalis riding his blood like a ghost that knows the shortcut to the heart. And her jaw tightened in that tiny way people show you they're standing over a trap door they installed themselves. She asked what I wanted, and I said justice, not because it's cleaner than revenge, but because revenge eats the cook transfer. 51% of Apex Forge to a veterans fund resigned for irreconcilable ethical failures. Stop calling a poisoning a heart attack, and she called it extortion. And I said no, it's restitution. Then opened my laptop to a draft on an investigative outlet run by Eli Navarro, a Marine who still calls my dad. Sir, 12 million subscribers, timed releases. If anything happens to me, you pull my thread and the sweater turns into a net. And she tried to laugh, said, "The public forgets, but soldiers dying in defective gear, and a colonel dead after confirming the exact maintenance shortfall that doesn't evaporate in 24 hours. She did what power always does. Hired a former FBI bloodhound, bought a hacker who loves the sound of his own key clicks, paid to flood feeds with the story of a grieving teen slipping into conspiracies. And I didn't take the bait. I looked into a cheap camera in the corner of the room, where my dad used to iron his uniform, and said my name, my age, and one simple line: when people are desperate, they try to make you small. The truth doesn't care how small you feel. Posted it. Shut up, watched the view count climb like a siren test. Captain Brooke Hayes, old friend of my dad's voice, like a command that knows where it's going, told me not to argue with every lie set. The clock make them play your time, and that's what we did. 48 hours became 24 when a flash drive landed on Celia's receptionist's desk with 30 seconds of previews. A senator's laugh curdling when he saw the pen was a recorder, an email that read, "Ship the test batch anyway," and a photo of Celia sitting with a fixer whose watch face glints in a way you remember. And by the time her stomach dropped into a trash can that cost more than my bike, it was too late for control. She signed the transfer at 23 hours and 50 minutes, neutral office, lemon cleaner, stale air, Eli with a laptop open to a headline that would become a morning ritual in 1,000 kitchens. She said, "You promised," and I said, "I gave you a clock," and you tried to erase me choices, arrive with their own weather, and Hayes laid down surveillance photos like tarot. The hush-hush cafe, the envelope, the burner. While I told Celia we recorded the talk about a 7:10 a.m. accident on Eli's running route, redundancy saves lives, and Eli gave that half-smile people wear when they already buried the fear I run with a team. I'd like to tell you I felt triumph in that room, but the truth is simpler and messier. I felt tired the way bones feel tired after a winter that overstays. Then I felt something like gravity finally picking a side. And when Celia asked how I planned to keep integrity while fighting ugly, I told her we fight with plans and with people who don't vanish when the wind changes. We fight until enough is enough. And for a breath, she wasn't a billionaire. She was a human who used to know what a fair price was for a life. And then the moment passed, and the story hit like weather that had been forming just out of sight. Headlines foamed, feeds argued the stock didn't slide. It tumbled and scattered, the poker chips of men who thought acceptable failure was a phrase that belonged in budgets. Apex. Forge became a different animal under veterans who won't sign off on corners shaved down to bone. Celia pled to things that sound cleaner on paper than they look in real life, years, stacked into decades, while a judge thanked me in a voice that probably hugged his kid too tight that night. 6 months later, I turned 16. We signed papers for the Turner Trust for veterans and families. It funds body armor that fits and therapy that doesn't punish you for not knowing the right adjectives. Childcare that makes space for healing, and Eli sent me a photo of his second Pulitzer cropped, just enough to hide the tears he wasn't hiding. And I visit my father on Sundays with a radio and a baseball game because ordinary sound is a prayer that knows how to sit. I say, we did it. Dad, not to brag, to promise justice is bent by money, but we unbent a piece enough to matter to someone who has to count seconds while a gun is pointed the wrong way. People recognize me now. They want advice, and I want to give them a manual, because that's how I'm built. But life is a chain of moments where your heart slams and you choose anyway. So I tell them, breathe once, see everything, do the next right thing. You can reach, and if you need a line to hold on to that. One more thing, because this is where the clean ending should go, and I don't have one. Some of you will say I went too far. Some will say not far enough. Some will ask why I didn't trust the courts, or why I didn't take hush money and build something quiet. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're not. I didn't try to win perfect. I tried to win safer for the next kid who gets underestimated until it's too late. And if that bends your definition of justice, tell me why. If you stayed with me, thank you. Hit subscribe. If you believe integrity plus strategy plus loyal people can outweigh money and reputation, and drop your take in the comments. Where you're watching from, whether I drew a line or crossed one. The worst double standard you've seen up close and what you did about it. Was I right? Was I wrong? Or does justice sometimes require the kind of wrong that bends toward right? I want to hear it.